Hey legend, I am walking through a YouTube episode today, which is how I manage work while training for a half Ironman in 8 weeks' time. So I've been doing that for about 4 months already and then competed in the Western Sydney half Ironman. But what I want to walk through in this episode is really how I manage that to be competitive for Busso while also working in a really competitive job. Now, I really believe that anyone can do this. It's really not that hard, the triathlon training, but I just want to provide more tactical insights in how I actually do that. So you'll be coming along today on a bit of a day in my life where I'll be heading out for a 16-kilometer run now, but also then having to head into the city, manage work, and then, my bedtime routine and things like that. So follow us along for this episode where you'll get some inside tips in how I manage full-time work while training for a half Ironman. All right, before we do though, head out for the 16-kilometer run, I want to just quickly talk through like all this stuff that I have organized, which are like my salts, my gels. It's all done the night before. So, we're talking about how do I manage everything. There's almost like a bit of a checklist I do the night before and have it all set up, whether it's my clothes. So when I wake up, I'm like getting straight into the clothes that I've prepared the night before. And it's like that big thing that Mark Zuckerberg and these other folks talk about, which is like decision fatigue. And I'm very big on like how can I minimize every decision, especially in the morning, like that period from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. I really should just I feel like the morning routine I've been doing is almost like 10 years now. So it's like, it should just be like a routine for me to be able to get the most out of that morning without having to expand so much energy. So basically that's what I do the night before to prepare for the 4 to 8 a.m. I know what training session I'm doing and things like that. And it will always depend on if I'm like working from home that day, heading into the office, or most of my job too, I'll be traveling domestically or internationally as well. So each day is really different for me how I schedule the training in. And I think especially while doing the Ironman, half Ironman training, some mornings I could be at the pools or I need to go do a road session. And I actually was thinking about this the other day. Do I spend more time like in total preparing and training for a half Ironman, or like, when I was doing CrossFit or more gym every day? And like there's not many great gyms around our area. So if I do want to go to like the two gyms I really love, it's actually a 20-minute drive, 20 to 25-minute drive there and back. So technically, before I was spending an extra hour each day traveling to the gym every single day. Whereas right now, because my bike is on the trainer and I'm running most mornings, I actually think it would be like a net even. I think I'm training more volume at the moment, like just slightly. But in terms of like maximizing my time, I actually believe that this is more effective because you can just put your joggers on, go for a run. And that's really why I also started running and getting into that, is because when I was traveling for work, it was just like all I needed was joggers and I could go for a run. So again, that's one tip on how I manage a few of those aspects of work. And so I think what's also really important is making sure that people at your job also know what competitions you're doing or what you're working towards, because they'll also be enthusiastic and wanting to support in those things. And to date, I haven't had a boss or a manager, if I've expressed how much that means to me outside of work, they are there to support me to be able to achieve my goals as well, because they know a healthy if I'm excited about things outside of work, I also bring that passion into work as well. So ensure that you're working for a good company and boss that also supports your goals as well. All right, because it is 5 a.m. on the dot right now, I'm about to head out for a run. I think obviously a really important key factor of how I fit training in with work is I wake up early, but I also go to bed early. And so I always want to make sure that I getting like 8 hours sleep. And honestly, like I function way better when I'm getting 8 hours sleep. So I always do go to bed like the same time every single night. And also waking up between that 4 and 5 a.m. really helps to be able to get the most out of my morning so I'm not grumpy. But yeah, always my sessions are mostly in the morning. It also enables me to then, like, once I've ticked that box off and focused on getting my training done, I can then settle and sit at my desk nice and calmly so I can focus on work as well. When I feel like personally I leave training till the afternoon, I'm like thinking about training and I've got to get it done, and it just feels like it drags it out, and I like start to feel like I don't want to do that session. So always get it done first thing in the morning. And another big thing too is like I'm obviously super grateful, but I think you can also have the power of picking your own partner as well. But is like obviously work's really busy, training's really busy, but thankfully Gabe really loves training as well, and we get to spend a lot of time together when we're out running and training in the morning. So I'm really grateful we get to have our time where we're sort of communicating and chatting with one another there. And then I think lastly, it's bin day. So you can probably hear some background noise, but I think what's really important to highlight as well is knowing your why. And I'm really clear on why I want to do this half Ironman at the moment, and hence it helps me be able to optimize my day and focus on my purpose. Because I think if you start to like add in all this training while working full time, you just think like, what the hell am I doing this for? And it becomes really overwhelming. So it's important to understand why you are doing this. So we just wrapped up with a 16-kilometer run. It is currently 6:40 a.m. and today's running was really a bit of a warm-up, and then we had a 6-kilometer run at threshold pace, which is a 70.3 pace. And ideally we run a little bit faster, but we held 5 kilometers per hour for the 6 kilometers, and then we had 7 more kilometers after that, so a total of 16 kilometers. It was pretty good. But I guess another topic of this YouTube channel today, or this episode essentially, is really around 2 things that I found that's helped me maintain training while working full time, as well as actually eating before your workout. Because more so when I used to do CrossFit, I actually never ate before training, and I would train for then 60 minutes to 2 hours, and CrossFit's pretty high intensity, and I would crash by 2-3 p.m. I'd always crash and be really exhausted. So definitely what I've been doing for 2 years now when I see a nutritionist is really focusing on a bit of carbs and then protein straight after the workout, instead of I don't know, fasting or whatever. I found fasting for me just made me crash more in the afternoon, and I feel like my cortisol's a bit high raised and a bit edgy. So yeah, that really helps for me. Also appreciate everyone has completely different jobs, and what my job includes is mainly sitting down all day. It's an office job, though I'm in sales, so it can be walking around and things like that in terms of meeting clients and prospects and things like that. But I really love getting my body moving in during the morning so I can feel rested during the day. And I think, everything I talk about now is I know tradies usually start at 7 a.m. work, so it might be a little bit harder to get work in or get a training session in before work. But for me personally, as I work in an office job, training in the morning works, and then really it sets up for me for the rest of the day. And then once that afternoon hits and I'm turning work off, I can start to already go into recovery mode. I've always found training in the afternoon for me personally, I'm a bit wired before bed, and it disrupts my sleep from my stats on the Whoop and the 8 sleep as well. So that really works. And these are the little moments in the morning that we get to chill and spend time together before the day starts. Coffee while Rogue's doing a poo over the water. Let's go.
What I do.
Any tips for the fans?
Any tips on what part? Running? Just run?
No. On how we manage full-time work while training.
Still figuring that out. Do your best.
How do you help me?
Just being an awesome partner.
Because literally how I manage this is the help of this one. You really help me out.
Being it together.
Yeah.
Partnership goes a long way.
Yeah, and little things going to sleep the same time together. You help me out with meal prep, and just real high communications of if I'm getting home from training, is there anything you can do? And vice versa, the same for you. And just making sure we manage your priorities for the week, my priorities, what are the most outcomes you can get each day, and focusing on those so you feel like you're not getting overwhelmed, and you're still moving forward and things.
Love it.
Morning routine is basically wrapped up. I get into a bit of work now, so I've got about 2-3 meetings I'm jumping on virtually, and then I'm actually heading into the city today where I've got 2 in-person meetings where I'm meeting prospects. It's pretty hard for me to talk about exactly how the meetings go and insights into conversations I'm having and showcase that, because that would be unprofessional. But very much so what I do for a job is I work in technology sales, so I'm working with pretty large enterprise organizations within the Australia, New Zealand, India market, around APAC, around solving what they can do with our technology, which is an AI productivity tool. And really they buy that for potentially anywhere from 100,000 plus. And part of my role is all around ensuring I'm closing revenue, net new revenue for the business that I'm working for. So you will probably see me the next time when I am heading into the city. And it is 10:50 a.m. and had a few meetings this morning and then heading into the city now, but thought I'd get on here and answer a few questions in terms of what I've had in the Instagram DMs the past few weeks. So one would be like, how do I manage, work and training? Like, I don't think I'm special at all. Like I did a 16-kilometer run this morning, which, I think most folks could fit into their schedule. But I think it's about how do you continuously back it up with the mental load and stress that it all cuts together. And so really for me, being able to just appreciate and be kind on myself, knowing that some weeks I am like, there's not enough time to train how I would like to, or especially recover. Like I would say, when it comes to mobility and fully recovering, I am not doing that as much as I should, is the honest truth. Like I barely do mobility how I used to when I had more time when I was younger. I would like make sure I'd spend an hour each night doing like rolling my legs out and my back and things like that. So that sort of takes the last priority at the moment, because it's always like training is number one and then, work really. Also, I spoke about this morning around knowing your why, and I know for me, I've always played sports and wanted to do competitive things, and I actually feel like being competitive, it translates over into the certain role that I'm doing in a competitive sort of sales role. You're always wanting to be better, or, I think most roles like that, when you're in sales, they almost let go of the bottom 10%. So it's always about how can you be leveling up, improving and things like that. So I feel like my physical endeavors really translate over into work. For me personally too, I've had periods and chapters of my life, which was really when I first got into this role, where it was just like all work, and I would train in the gym in the mornings, but it was more just to like stay fit and healthy, which is always like the number one motivation, but not so much taking on these competitive pursuits. But I actually feel like I lose myself a little bit when I'm not training towards something outside of work, really. I feel like it gives me a lot of purpose. It's my way to network and actually meet new people, which is really important to me, especially with working a bit of remote type style work. A lot of the folks I connect with could be in different states, different countries. And so it's awesome to be connecting with people sort of my age as well, and talking about their challenges that they're going on. And I really want to build that network of folks that are, whether it's doing the half Ironman, half marathon. All right, we have landed in the city and it's pretty noisy here, but thought I'd add a little insight here around managing full-time work. I think with the way that I work in this era, I think with everything being online all the time and accessible, it's important that you work for companies that, I think respect boundaries around, whether it's working 9 to 5 or you're working actually later and time starting. I think you should try to get into a role that's very much focused on outcome. So it is currently 5:30 p.m. We're just driving home right now. Now, I'm getting used to this YouTube thing and probably could have been a little bit more specific and concise in what I'm getting across in this episode, but I'm still going to post it because, I can keep continuously recording things and then not posting it, and I won't get that feedback loop as well. So today really was to showcase how I train really in the morning and then I'm working the rest of the day. I think what's really important is I've done a lot of sitting today as well. Though I don't really do much specific mobility, one thing I definitely do to make sure like I am somewhat set up for tomorrow's session is like I love to go for an afternoon walk with Rogue, just to like literally stretch the body and just get the blood flow going. Because what I've experienced myself, like even having specific rest days, I don't do so much because I actually feel like I get more stiff. And I've tried I feel like I have been someone before that has felt uneasy in myself having a day off because I thought I should be training and I felt bad about that. But I'm actually in a space where I definitely love rest days, or more so now it's more about the low intensity days. And because I actually feel like moving the body, getting the blood flowing better actually helps with speeding up my recovery process. And so, after I get home from work, sitting down all day, I don't want to immediately just sit on the lounge or, lay in bed because I feel like my back and my knees sort of seize up and just like feels a bit funky the next day. So that is definitely a little bit of a little tip or trick that I do. This Ironman, this is really just a journey into how I'm managing it and the best approach. And of course, with the personality I am and training for the 70.3 Ironman, I naturally think, how am I going to train for an Ironman while working full time? So I think with endurance sports as well, it's very much just like a time period. You can't rush it too much. Because I think you can get like, tendonitis and these little flare-up injuries. And, the aerobic base does take time just to build over weeks, months, years. So I feel like I'm on a good trajectory right now. I've obviously got beginner gains as well on like the bike and swim and run and things like that. But I can really see how it can continue doing that with being consistent every day. I spoke about it earlier in this episode as well, which Gabe was there. But I really do appreciate how much Gabe supports me in the alignment of our goals. And I think, potentially people watching this could be, by themselves, or if you do have a partner. I obviously want my partner to be aligned with the vision and goals that we're both very much deeply care about. And Gabe is aware of what I want to achieve and vice versa. And I think we help each other, very complementary in different areas of life. And we've had to have those discussions around, she liked to go to bed later, I like to go to bed earlier. And I guess it has to be a middle ground, because like both of us like going to bed together, and it like almost puts us to sleep when we're both feeling like we are falling to sleep together because we're like cuddling and, getting tired. Whereas if she comes in later, then sort of interrupts me going, and then I wake up, and same thing, I get up early in the morning, wake her up with my alarm going off. So there has to be, I think, a bit of like compromises, if possible, in certain parts of the relationship to make the most out of each day and therefore week. And you know what? Honestly, get into technology sales if you don't know what you want to do with your life, because I definitely didn't know or have a specialty in what career I wanted to go into, but the flexibility that technology sales has been able to provide me is honestly second to none. And, I think it's a career that can really help just understand where the world's at. Like, technology is just going to be, we use it every single day. I think it's a really cool space to be in, with how the leaders in that area are very innovative, thinking about how they can improve the world. And really, I think being in sales is a very stressful job, because there's lots of, I guess, things that you need to manage up and down the chain within corporate. But I honestly think if I ever wanted to start my own business, it's like, I got to be good at sales. So like, I'm getting to learn on someone else's dime while earning good money. And I've actually really identified in myself, I need metrics and KPIs to work towards. And I've said this before in a podcast and a few other places, but I literally was working in operations for a little bit, and I felt like the days were so slow, doing nothing all day. Or it was like you could almost fake your job, which is really bad to say. But in sales, you literally cannot fake what you're doing, because you're either closing deals or you're not. And it's like, you have to use your brain, problem solve. I think the emotional intelligence you have to have as well. And you learn and pick up on the way of like social cues and talking to people and navigating complexities within a political environment. And it's really been able to help me grow as a human, personally and professionally as well. So, I think there are traits and characteristics that I also feel like I'll be able to translate in the future as well. Rogie go. And we're going to go take Rogie for a W. And then I've actually turned the sauna on. I'm going to come back and sauna. And I probably wouldn't usually sauna. Well, it's getting later now. It'll be like 6:30 the time I get into this bad boy. But because we have turf games in a few days, I need to get some extra recovery in. And honestly, feeling pretty tired and buggered today after heading into the city with a few meetings. In-person meetings, when you do a lot of preparation and they're really intense, like 90-minute blocks, they can take a lot of energy out of you. So looking forward to going for a little walk, chilling out now. But appreciate you all watching this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.